I am Charlotte, Activities and Events Officer of the Swiss LSE Alumni Association. Tonight, we're very pleased to have you here on our very first show of the Inside Angle. It is a laid-back talk and interview session with LSE alumni and alumna and other guests. We are talking their work and adventures for your insight and enjoyment. Tonight, I'm very pleased and honored to have with us on the first show, Paul Drake. He is Senior Director, Legal, Global Marketing at eBay. We will be discussing the topic of managing teams remotely. Paul is since 17 years at eBay. He has led various teams across Europe, including Russia, Turkey, France, Spain, and Italy. He is currently based in Switzerland and managing a team in the US. If you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat. We will make sure to answer them after. Good evening, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Charlotte. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's really great that we're able to launch this show with you. I think we have a very interesting topic that is very actual. And my first question for you would be, you've been now since a very long time in the e-commerce business. What has for you changed since the beginning you started and now?
Yeah, so I started at eBay way back in 2003 when eBay, and I joined in the UK, when eBay was just becoming mainstream. It was kind of well known as a sort of .com, one of the original .com companies, and then it was in the UK becoming much more well known and a place to really buy and sell things. But I was actually working in the e-commerce industry before that in private practice when I was working at a law firm called Olswang. So from the early 2000s, the change now is, I mean, it's a completely different landscape now. At the time, eBay was the only place, one of the only places where you could buy and sell things online. Amazon was just focusing on books and DVDs and CDs at the time. It was quite small, there was really nothing else. None of the retailers had started selling online yet. So it's since then it's grown dramatically. The industry is now huge, and the growth of eBay's grown considerably in that time, but the growth of Amazon has been incredible, as has many other companies now. Companies that have retailers that are now selling online very successfully, like Walmart in the US or Tesco or John Lewis in the UK and many others. And also the growth of PayPal has been super interesting. eBay bought PayPal in 2002, and then it was spun off 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago. And PayPal is now, I don't know, $200 billion market cap versus eBay, which is about 40. So it's huge now compared to eBay. And at the time when I started, I was doing the legal work for PayPal in Europe, and it was just one guy. We were doing his various deals to try and push out PayPal and get people to use it more and more. So now it's a kind of a global brand, as is eBay and all the others. And the interesting thing about eBay, it's not just e-commerce. It's eBay pioneered the kind of idea of giving feedback. Which is you look at Uber, you look at Airbnb, all of these companies now, they're using that same kind of basic system of rate your driver, rate your stay. eBay's rate your seller. And it's super interesting how that has developed over time and how eBay pioneered it. So I've been very grateful to have joined eBay all those years ago, and we've just celebrated our 25th anniversary. The current events have actually pushed our industry forward, probably people saying up to 5 years, in terms of more and more people using e-commerce, buying online now, because it's so much easier and they haven't got to go out to a shop, they don't need to bother wearing a mask, etc., etc. And the whole industry now seems to have taken a big step forward in terms of penetration across the world, and the market, kind of the stock market, has really recognized that, and the valuations have gone very high for many other companies. even more so than eBay. And you have Amazon growing like crazy. There's companies like Shopify, who are a big, I think it's the biggest Canadian company now, helping
Mhm.
retailers get online, etc. There's so many other companies out there now. So the landscape is totally different. But it's super interesting, super fast moving. And I'm still at eBay after nearly 18 years, and I really enjoy it. So we'll see what the next 25 years is like.
Yes, no, definitely. I think it's very exciting, and it somehow feels that we're only at the beginning. So, also, then to know a bit more into the topic we want to discuss, how did you right now arrive in the situation you're in right now of managing a team remotely?
Yeah, so as you mentioned in your introduction, I was managing a team based mainly in Europe, covering European matters, looking after markets in France, Italy, Spain, Russia, Turkey, etc. And then earlier on this year, which seemed like a very long time ago, eBay had a reorganization. I mean, we have a reorganization all the time, like many other big companies. And my business unit was merged with Germany, and so the VP of that business unit was based in Berlin, and so we already had a head of legal in Germany, my peer Dirk, and so uh, he basically took on my old team, and then I moved to manage. At the time, it was a temporary role as a maternity cover for the global marketing team, and two guys, and they're based in San Jose in California and Salt Lake City in the US. And then 6 months after that started, the person who I was covering, she left to take on a different role, and so I took on the role permanently. But I never actually had the chance to meet with my team in person because they joined eBay in the last few years. We hadn't had the chance to meet up when I was going to the US, and there's no travel now, so I have never actually met them. So it's kind of a strange situation that we're in, and also I'm part of a new management team, and they're based in Zurich. I know some of those guys. They're based in Seattle. They're based in San Jose, and a lot of those people I've never met either. So we're kind of in this. I know I'm not the only person to experience this. People joining the company in the last 6 months, joining other companies in the last 6 months. Their experience so far has been purely through their computer screens in general. So it's been very strange and unusual time, and so I'm kind of trying to do my best to try and build a relationship with my team, with my new team, in the absence of having met with them in person, which is quite difficult.
Yes, no, you mentioned unusual times. I think a lot of people can relate to it. Do you have, for example, like concrete measures that you could maybe share that you took at the beginning of managing a team remotely?
Yeah, so I've been managing teams remotely for quite some time, but we always manage to try and get together in person, be it every 3 months, every 6 months, and that always used to be the highlight of my time at eBay. When we would meet in Paris, Madrid, Milan, we would work on matters in the office, and then we'd have the chance to go out in the evening and spend some time getting to know each other. And that kind of getting to know each other in person formed the foundation for the relationship, which then you can build off of that when you then chat with people. At the time, we were using Skype or Link or whatever it then became known. Um, but so we always had to refresh that that relationship in person. But now, having we can't travel to the US, they can't come over here, and so what I try to do now is make sure we have regular one-to-ones, and I really focus on talking about stuff that's not work related. Um, Obviously, we're all working together. We've got things to do, and it's important that we deliver on our commitments. But for them, I really want to try and get to know them as individuals. And so I spend probably at least half of my time when I speak to them, if not more than that, talking about them, how they're doing, what's going on in their world, and sort of try and understand how they're feeling, because I know I've from my own personal experience being at home all of the time with not a huge amount of social contact because of the situation, it can feel quite lonely and isolating, and people just don't know what's going on with you unless you tell them or unless they ask you. So I think it's really important to try and build that relationship with people and understand how they feel in order for them to be able to feel like somebody cares about them. They're not just on their own. So building that relationship with them and you could call it small talk, but I think it's actually really important. Maybe more important than people think. Oh, I don't have time for this. I need to get on with this topic. But I think it's super important. So that's one thing I really try and do. With my new team members.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are definitely a lot of adjustments to do, and I guess there are some positive and some negatives. So, what would for you be the positive aspects of managing a team remotely?
Well, I'm not. I mean, it's the positive thing is that I can manage a team across the world. That we obviously have to manage our. It's not. I don't have anybody from the Asia Pacific region in my team, which makes it a bit easier. So I tend to end up working, European time, 5 p.m. onwards, when the guys in the West Coast wake up. And so, but we're able to function. They could be next door with the fast internet connections that we've got. We're using Zoom, like many other companies and individuals. So the technology works really well. And I kind of get, if you would imagine a pandemic of this scale 10 years ago, without companies like Zoom, without probably broadband speeds as fast as they are now, I think we would have much harder time getting any work done than now. So I think the technology has really helped. So the advantage is we can manage a global team. We can continue to run the business despite all of the challenges. So I think and that's a lot of that is down to the technology at the moment. And then I think working just remotely has meant that many people, including myself, have spent less time having to commute to the office. So you end up having a bit more, maybe a bit more time to do more sport or to listen to music. Because I never used to sit in the office with headphones on. I thought that was strange. I thought, what's the point of being in the office with headphones? I always used to like the chatter. But at home, I'll listen to lots of music. I listen to podcasts, and so you have some more time to kind of learn things, which is what I'm trying to do, to take some positives out of the situation, rather than being in the office where you just have a chat with people, which is also good as well. So there's pluses and minuses, but I for one am looking forward to be able to get back to the office, even if it's just a few days a week.
Yeah, no, I think there's also right now kind of what is fascinating. There's a change of mindset because before actually this pandemic, working from home was something that was very, not really considered. And right now, also when we're sitting in a meeting and there's one person that is at home, it feels like she's in the office. And that's like you said, it's also thanks to this whole technology. And on the other side, then, what is the thing you would miss the most right now from not, managing your team remotely?
Yeah, well, I think it's, as I mentioned, the being able to see people in person, and not that you need to see everybody every single day, which used to, in the old days, it used to be quite stifling when your boss sat opposite you or next to you, and if you got into the office 1 minute late and they're already sat down, you feel, oh no, and then you feel like you have to stay there until they've gone, and this kind of these kinds of behaviours that dominated the office. Quite recently, I think it's slowly going away when you realise that it's not really people just being somewhere visible. It's what they actually deliver, what they're doing, what's their output. That's important. Are they delivering on their projects? Are they answering their, dealing with their clients' issues or whatever it might be? Not are they just there? But I never really realised how much I would miss the office. I used to work before all of this. I used to work 1 day a week at home for the last maybe 5 years. So I used to try and work from home on a Friday, and I always used to look forward to that day because I wouldn't have to deal with the morning commute, and it would be much more relaxing. And I wouldn't have. I'd try not to schedule too many meetings on the Friday, so I could have some time to think about matters. But after a few months of being at home, I realised that I actually really do miss the office, and I miss the social aspect, and I miss being able to jump on a plane or a train or whatever it might be and meet with my team and, as I said, get to know them a bit more, and just enjoy being with them. Because a lot of the people I've worked with for 10, 12, 15 years. So they're kind of, I've almost grown up with them. They're almost, family or friends in that sense. And we always used to look forward to getting together. And that for me was always a big part of being at eBay is the people. There's a really great bunch of people who I've got to know, and lots of people have come and gone over those years, but there's quite a few people who've been around and stayed. So you kind of miss that in this situation, because now we tend to have our meetings with people in our team, and it tends to be transactional. Obviously I mentioned about the small talk with your team members, but then people outside your team, you're normally talking to them because of there's something to talk about in terms of we have something to deal with, we have an issue, we have an escalation, etc., etc. You don't normally just have a chat with somebody, schedule half an hour, just have a chat. I do try to do it with my old team, just to try and keep in touch and see what they're doing, because I worked with them for, as I said, 10 years plus. So I really do miss that in-person aspect, and I think that's maybe a lot of other people are coming to that realization, that social aspect is really important, and also the idea of going to an office and sort of almost putting on your work persona. That I think that means something, and that kind of puts you in a kind of different mindset, which is why we had a talk I mentioned earlier. We had a talk today about ergonomics, because we've been told that we have to work at home now until the 1st of June. And so we had an external company have a look at. We sent photos of our desks, and they talked about, okay, this is too high, too low, whatever. But they also talked about the social aspect of being in the office and how important that is, and making sure you know what how your team are, which is quite difficult to do in this situation.
Yeah, very interesting. And so I think your company is already a step ahead, talking about ergonomics, which is, I think, very interesting. Do you think that after this pandemic, the companies will have to rethink their organizations? Is it something that is going to happen on a global scale, or how do you see it?
Well, I think now, given that people are working from home and they're doing it effectively. I mean, the work, we might not feel so great about everything all of the time, but we're still working and we're still delivering on what we need to do, and the tools enable us to do that. The business is still running. Many other businesses are still running, even though that there's nobody actually in the office. So I think that our company was probably, and like many others like ours, probably in the forefront of these kinds of changes, because I said we have been using video meeting technology for many years. We've been used to managing teams remotely, virtually, etc., for many years, just because of the global nature of our business and the fact that we're a tech company. But maybe many other industries haven't gone that far, and might think now, well, why do we need all this office space? Do we need to give people permanent desks? Can they just hot desk? I mean, the ideal scenario for me would probably be spending part of the week in the office and part of the week at home, so that you have the best of both worlds. And so I think many other companies may realise that, and this probably may have accelerated a process whereby it might become more normal and usual for people to spend 2 or 3 days a week at home, and therefore that desk that you've got there doesn't need to be your own desk. It can be somebody else can use it. So therefore, then you need fewer desks in the office, smaller offices maybe. So I can see that happening in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think there's for sure a lot of rethinking that is done. And also, there's this question coming up often of, is the office as a central workplace actually going to disappear or not? There are actually really companies that are asking themselves this question. What is your opinion on this?
Well, I think it's to say the office will disappear would be a massive shift, and I still think that there's still a debate as to whether or not having people co-located in some place helps with innovation, communication, collaboration, all of those kinds of things. And I tend to think it must help. Certainly, when you're in the office, one of the interesting things is if you're in an office where there's a lot going on, is that you can overhear conversations. You chat to people at the coffee machine, at the water cooler, in the kitchen, and you learn things that you may not otherwise have known about. That might spark an idea, or you might think, oh, I need to speak to this other person. I didn't know this was happening, and this then can lead to ideas being sparked off, among different groups, which I think is really important in modern companies, where everybody has to continually try and move forward and find the next thing. Nothing stands still. Certainly in our industry, it's so dynamic. So I think having somewhere for people to kind of work together and collaborate, obviously have meetings in person and all hands meetings, maybe sort of social events, etc., in the office or in a shared space. I think I don't see that going away, but I see, maybe I can see there's just less need for people to be at the office all of the time. So I could certainly see now becoming far more normal to have people working at home, and it's as you mentioned, it's kind of okay, you're at home, you're part of the group. It doesn't matter whether you're at home or somewhere else. So and maybe people would like to take that step further and go and work in another country, go and rent a house in a different part of where you are, and with our Zoom backgrounds now, we can be anywhere. This idea that your location has anything to do with your work. I mean, when you think about it, what does it have to do with it? What does it matter whether you're at home or in an office or in a cafe or by the beach? As long as you can hear and see the other person and they can work, you have a good internet connection, it kind of doesn't matter. So I think it's super interesting how things will develop, once this whole pandemic goes away. But I do think I think that the idea of collaboration and innovation and sort of hubs of people together working together is something that will still continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned a very interesting point. I think it's definitely also reconsidering how actually recruiting people, because like you said, you can be anywhere. So it's actually also rethinking, I think, the whole recruitment process of you don't necessarily need to recruit then someone who is living like an hour from the office, which I think is yes, it's a very big change of mindset.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What would be then for you the leadership like characteristics that we need to manage teams remotely?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned about the fact that you need to get to know your teams as individuals, and try and understand where they're coming from. So I suppose you could call it emotional intelligence. This idea that you can kind of try and gauge the individual, how they're feeling, and then ask questions and try and draw out things from them to try and understand how they feel. Are they having a good day? Are they having a bad day? Does this project, do they like it? Do they not like it? Have they had any problems or issues? Often people are reluctant to share information for fear of sounding like that. They don't want to sound like they don't want to do certain tasks, but it's normal. It's natural that you have some tasks that you like doing, some tasks you don't like doing very much. And as a manager, I would love to have my team doing what they enjoy doing and doing what they're good at, because then you get the best results. And obviously, we don't live in a perfect world where everybody can just do what they like, but in a large organisation, certainly there is quite a lot of scope for people to try out different things, to change roles, or spend some time working on a project for another team. So I think trying to understand your team is really important, and then understand where there could be issues with other team members, because at the moment I think the communication, as I said, is so transactional. There's no opportunity for let's just grab a quick coffee and discuss this thing because I noticed that somebody else had said something, and I feel like maybe we need to have a conversation about it. It's much harder to do now. So I think being conscious of that and being conscious of how people are feeling in their own, kind of in their own silos almost at home, I think is really important, to then be able to help them to kind of do their best in terms of what they're trying to do with their work, etc. Make them feel like they belong, they're part of a team, that they're not just on their own, kind of abandoned. I think these kinds of trying to kind of bring your team in, welcome them, and as best as you can, given the situation, is really important. And we're trying to think about what can we do as a group remotely, be it a Zoom wine tasting event, or we're having an idea about having a kind of Christmas seasonal cooking event. We'll have a chef, until we will have to get we'll send everybody a pack of ingredients. Maybe it could make a nice fruit cake or Christmas pudding, or I don't know what. But we would all spend an evening, an hour or two, following the chef and cooking something just for a bit of fun, and we can you get to see more people on the screens who you otherwise wouldn't necessarily talk to. So these kinds of things, I think, are kind of becoming more popular as ways to just try and build a connection amongst teams in the absence of any physical connection. It's kind of interesting how the longer this goes on, the more we may get used to it, and we all end up in this kind of virtual world, almost like I've been spending a lot of time on my bike, and I use this application called Zwift, and it's kind of a virtual reality bike thing, and you're in the game riding your bike. My kids play Fortnite far too much, and they're in a game, and we're all on Zoom doing things. It's kind of really interesting how things are moving in this direction, and how people now maybe becoming a lot more comfortable with doing things like this. And it's not a replacement for being. I don't think it'll ever replace being there in person, but it's much better than doing nothing. I think, because ultimately human beings are social animals, and I think we need that contact for our own mental well-being. But these are things that can kind of replace that in some way.
Yeah, and I think we really underestimate our capacity to adapt ourselves to new situations. I think this has been really very quick this time.
Yes.
So for the final question, what would then be for you your most valuable takeaway of this pandemic?
Well, I think I'm most surprised at how much I miss, as I said, how much I miss the office. And I never thought I would miss it. And I don't even know whether it's the office as such, more the process of going from home to somewhere else, working, doing what you're doing, and then going home again. And almost like, although, you take work home, we look on our phones, we're checking emails. There's often calls in the evenings with the US that I'd rather do at home than do in the office. But still, that process in some way seems to kind of complete the day in a way. Whereas now it's kind of, it's so much of a blur between work and home. And now we're being told that we have to be at home another 9 months or so, I'm thinking, what else can I do now to really turn this spare bedroom we have into a proper office? Do I need to, buy some more furniture? What do I need to do? So just the idea of the office and the idea of being somewhere else, doing your work, chatting with other people. I think, to me, I'm most surprised that how much I miss that, and how much it seems to affect my mental well-being.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely. We
yeah,
will have to work. Sorry, no, you wanted to say?
no, I was just saying, and the other thing is how, as we mentioned, how well the technology has worked, frankly, and how we've all adapted so quickly. Within a space of a few days, we were all okay. We all work at home. Zoom, we already had Zoom working in our office a few months before, and frankly, I'd never heard of the company before we started using it. Maybe at the end of last year, but the whole that company seems to have appeared at the right time, as their stock price will show. But just the way it works and the way the technology is super easy to use, and it's great fun with the backgrounds, etc. So I'm quite surprised at how quickly that's taken off and how people have adapted and just got on with their jobs.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, Paul, thanks so much for all these insights. It was
You're
very
welcome.
interesting. And yeah, I mean, we are actually still in the middle of it, so we will see how it evolves, and I'm sure we'll be able to discuss further into the topic. If there are any questions, we again invite you to write them in the chat. We will make sure to answer them. And we would like to thank you very much for being here. And if you have really curiosity for some upcoming new shows, don't hesitate to subscribe on our channel, and we will make sure that you can have more content in the upcoming month. Thank you very much. We wish you a nice evening and good night.